welcome to Tea and a Buddy. We are back. I'm Dominic.
And I'm Erica.
And we're going to be talking about, boy bands.
Oh my god, if you could see the face he was doing just then.
Bloody love boy bands, don't we? We
boy
do.
Bands.
Boy bands of Britain and boy bands of America. Lovely.
And no, the Beatles are not included on that list.
No, they're not. I mean, people call them the original boy band, the origin of the
it's
term.
So wrong.
It is, really, because, I mean...
Okay, so what is a boy band?
Is it just a band made up of boys?
No.
Is it a band...
Here is my idea of what a boy band is.
Yeah.
A boy band is a group of 4, 5, or 6 members, usually. They do not play instruments. I don't know why.
They just sing and they dance.
I don't know why they call them a band. They're not. I guess they're a band of boys.
Well, it sounds better boy band than boy group, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
It's like it rolls off the tongue better, boy band.
They usually get started in their late teens, early 20s.
They usually have acid wash jeans on.
Spiky
and they
hair.
usually spiky hair, baggy like shirts, lots of necklaces, and they usually always pose for photos with their hands on their backs of their thighs. Yeah.
What?
You know what I'm talking about. All the girls go, I really love him. He's my favourite. You know I'm right.
I really have no idea what you're talking about, actually.
Yes, you do. You know I'm right.
Okay, so they're young boys.
Young boys,
they're
like
4, 5, 6
20s.
members, early 20s. They do not play instruments, but they do dance.
Yeah, they dance with their hands on the backs of their thighs.
Oh my god, no.
They're just like that. That's what they look like.
Oh my god. Okay. No. They dance. They harmonize. Yeah. They're usually talking about girl. They're like girl.
Girl.
Yeah. So that is what we're talking about. The like Beatles.
Smoky crap.
I mean, if we're going to consider, I think the reason
Smoky bacon crap.
What?
Yeah,
Oh, they have like
smoke. And they always hold the mic like, like that. And they always look into the camera like
or if they're the Backstreet Boys.
And they're sitting on stools. Why are they always sitting on stools all the time?
They do a slow walk and they're like looking down at the camera and the camera's like at their feet, and they're just walking and their shoulders are rotating like that, and they're just like
the rotator cuffs going, Yeah.
No, I guess the reason why they try to put the Beatles into the group is because usually with boy bands, in quotation marks,
they've got girls who scream for them.
There's a hysteria involved.
There's hysteria, yeah, because they're attractive and and all the girls go, "Wow!"
That's really the ultimate criteria of being in a boy band. Is you have to be attractive.
You have to be attractive. You have to have girls who scream for you, and you have to create some sort of hysteria.
Yeah,
that's why they put the monkeys in there too, I guess.
I mean, if you're gonna put the Beatles in, you're gonna
they got to be popular with the teeny boppers. But really, my criteria for a boy band is like, it's the same thing. It's like they don't really play instruments. They sing, they dance, and they're only like popular for like a year, and then they go away.
I don't know. You can't. I don't think that can be one of the criteria, because there's a big movement going on right now that's like a nostalgia movement.
Nostalgia of the boy bands, because they were popular for like 2 or 3 years,
Yeah, I mean, depending on who you're talking about. Some of them
Okay.
Some of them last
Can we talk about...
They didn't last like a whole decade, usually, no.
Can we talk about New Kids on the Block?
Yes, wait.
And how they disappeared on...
Wait! To go back to the Beatles for a second. If we're going to put the Beatles in the boy band category, you pretty much have to put every male
band that's from the 60s and 70s onward, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, like, okay, so are you going to say, who's someone current? Who's
BTS.
A current band?
BTS?
No, they are a boy band. No,
Well, there you go. See, I got one right.
No, I'm just talking about male bands where there's no girls in it. Let's say the Foo Fighters. Are the Foo Fighters a boy band?
Yeah.
No. They're not even like super current, but they're still out. Okay, people know who they are. Okay, go back to your New Kids on the Block point.
New Kids on the Block.
New Kids on the Block is my territory, thank you very much.
What happened
They are
to-
not British.
What happened to them?
You're not supposed to be talking about
No.
non-British boy bands.
I know will, because they were quite big in Britain for the all of 1990. and then we woke up on New Year's Day 1991 and they disappeared. They had. No, and people who are my age will remember that. People are like, where did New Kids on the Block go? They disappeared after 1991, you know?
I know.
Yeah, they did. They completely disappeared.
Listen, I was a New Kids on the Block fan, okay? They went from like the late 80s to the very early 90s.
Yeah, they disappeared.
They
on
had
New
a
Year's
few
Day,
albums.
1991.
I was all like, step by step, ooh, baby. No, do you know, they ran so many contests when I was little, and I entered every single one of them because I was 8 and I was in love. I was in love. Like, they were, I just loved them. And you know what? My mom liked them too. So their appeal spanned the ages, okay?
Yeah, no, they disappeared. I remember. There's
Maybe in Britain.
Yeah, they did. So who cares?
No,
Who
over
cares
here they changed to NKOTB because like they didn't want to be kids anymore. They started calling themselves NKOTB, and then it was just like, yeah, we don't know who you are now.
So we'll just do the American list now since we're on.
Okay, yeah. So before them was Menudo.
Hit me like a cannonball.
They were before me.
Like a cannonball. Do you remember that one? That was great, that one, wasn't it? That was their best hit.
Hi, vey. No.
You look like a little mushroom
I
that's
didn't
had
really.
enough of this
They
world.
were before me because I was very little when they were out, and yeah, I don't really know much about them except for that when Ricky Martin came out as a solo star, my mom was like, "Oh, he's from Menudo." Anyway, so you had Menudo in the 80s. You also had New Edition.
New Edition.
But see,
Are
these
they
were-
really American? Let's have a look. Let's talk about it. It's Bobby Brown.
But Menudo was a group that was formed. I think that's another criteria of boy bands, actually, is that a lot of them didn't come to be on their own.
No, they didn't form on their own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they weren't
They
like...
were put together, yeah.
I think the only one on the list that I can really... That really did form that way. Well, New Edition might have been. I don't know if they formed themselves or if they were formed.
Bobby Brown was in them. Yeah,
Boys to Men, I know, formed themselves.
Yeah.
They were like a, sort of like a throwback to the doo-wop groups, like hanging on the street corners, like singing, sort of like busking type thing, singing for spare change, whatever, like just to get noticed. Anyway, I'm not sure about the origins of New Edition because, again, I was very, very little when they were out. I do know that when they broke up, they split to Bobby Brown, of course, went on his own career and was huge in America. And then you had Belle Biv DeVoe, and they formed like their own group. They were like a trio, which was basically like another boy band. It was the same type of thing.
Yeah, similar things have happened in...
Only there was just the three of them. But then New Kids on the Block came out, and sort of like everybody forgot about New Edition and Menudo because New Kids on the Block was huge. Like, they were huge. I think they played the Super Bowl. I could be wrong about that. I could be totally making that up. But they were huge. And like you said, they were huge even in Britain.
Yeah, yes, they were. Yeah.
They had worldwide fame. And they're definitely like, they're on the nostalgia circuit now because of, yeah, because people like me who were 8 when they were out and didn't ever get to go to one of their shows is now an adult and can go, oh, I want to go see them. Like, whoa.
Go and do it. You got the microphone.
Hanging tough. Whoa. Okay, yeah. New Kids on the Block was my deal. But they changed to NKOTB. They lost everyone. they faded into obscurity. I think that it happened because of, I think there was a new wave of British bands, actually, that started coming out in the early 90s. And also you had, like, the grunge.
Yeah, the grunge movement was like Nirvana and all that. Guitars started coming back in.
Yeah, so it was like, not interested anymore. But then another movement happened toward the end of the 90s.
Yeah.
Where boy bands...
The same sort of thing happened in Britain, too.
Came back on the rise, yeah. So in the late 90s then, you had... Well, actually, I say that. You know what? Boyz II Men is on this list. I never considered Boyz II Men a boy band. I don't know why. Because they did sing and they danced and they didn't play any instruments. Like, they fell into all the same categories. I was a huge Boyz II Men fan as well. They were not in the late 90s, though. They were in the early to mid 90s they came out. And, they were great. I saw them at least twice in concert. They were really, really good. I never considered them a boy band, but apparently people do, so. Okay, I mean, they're called Boyz II Men, so I suppose. But then in the late 90s, you had the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC came out.
Yeah.
And there was like, they were huge again. They were the new kids on the block. And
Boys, yeah, and NSYNC, yeah.
Yeah, and they tried, and they made, like, I think the same guy created both of them. He, like, Lou Pearlman. I think he put them together. Yeah, I think he created both groups. I think the Backstreet Boys left sooner, or maybe I have it the wrong way around. Anyway, he was like a horrible guy. I think there's a new documentary about him, about how horrible he was, and
he was just a moneymaker, yeah.
Yeah, like he did not care about them at all, except for to make money, and he was just making money himself for himself. Yeah, like I think he cheated them a lot and stuff. I don't really know. Lance Bass from NSYNC put out some documentary. I think it debuted here at the South by Southwest Film Festival. So I'm not sure what it's called. Something about boy band. Anyway, so look that up. Lance Bass, if you're interested in that. It's like sort of exposing that whole situation that they were involved in, because he created a lot of the boy bands that came out at that time. I think I don't know if he created 98 Degrees, but he definitely did LFO, whoever they are, and O-Town. I remember O-Town vaguely because I think they had a lot of attractive boys in them. I think they came out very, very late 90s, like maybe even 2000, which was like when I was getting finished with high school. But I remember Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, like there was they tried to pit them against each other in a Beatles and Rolling Stones type way, because each one of them had their own group of girl fans for some reason. Like I don't know why you couldn't be a fan of both of them, but whatever, it was all manufactured.
It was all manufactured.
Like, oh, they're rivals and all of that kind of. I was a Backstreet Boys girl myself. Who came after that? Oh, Hanson. They have 98 Degrees. We'll just briefly mention them. I was never a fan. I think that they were just like meh.
They weren't that hot.
I don't know. I was just
Didn't
never
get that
really.
joke, did you?
Yes, I get it. I do get it. But I was never a 98 Degrees
Hanson, I mean, again, they played their own instruments and they were a family, so it was kind of like they were brothers.
Yeah,
they're not still alive. They still are going. When I was a kid, they came out when I was a kid and they had a Mbop, and that was the only thing I kind of remember from them.
I remember when Mbop, the first time I heard that on the radio, I thought it was some sort of like Jackson. I literally, genuinely thought it was some sort of Jackson 5 song that I had never heard.
He was like 11 or something.
And he was the main singer. Yeah.
He was like 11.
He was 11. How old was he, Dominic?
12.
Anyway, I remember genuinely thinking, is this a Jackson 5 song that I've never heard of? Like, something about the tone of his voice just reminded me of Michael Jackson. I mean, he was... Yeah, it was very Jackson 5-y to me the first time I heard it. But I don't know. I wouldn't put them in a boy band category other than the fact that that song sounds very poppy and like they all three I think played instruments.
Yeah,
play. I mean, they're still alive, so
yeah, they're still going. They still tour.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think listening? How do you categorize boy bands? I mean, would you put Hanson in the boy band group? I personally wouldn't, just for the fact that they played instruments and I think wrote their own music, which most boy bands, that's another thing, is they did not write their own music.
Well, they cover established artists.
Do they?
Most of them do, yeah.
I don't know. I don't.
I think when we get to mine,
I think Boyz II Men actually wrote a lot of their songs, but I don't.
I mean, sometimes they have songs written specially for them, but yeah, a lot of as I remember, British boy bands covered a lot of songs that were like.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. I can't think of really a lot of covers from American boy band groups. I say boy band groups. It's like it's weird to call them boy bands because they're not actually bands. In the 2000s, then really the only group that you had that was like considered a boy band type were the Jonas Brothers, and again, their family, they all play instruments. I mean, there was the hysteria surrounding them, and their music was very poppy, but I mean, they're not my traditional idea of a boy band. Like, they weren't out there just like dancing and singing and giving the camera sultry looks, as far as I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a bit old for the Jonas Brothers, so I was never really a Jonas Brothers person. And then in the 2010s, America has not produced any boy bands so far.
No boys are getting in bands at all.
Yeah, not
it's all
over
coming
here.
from other countries now.
Yeah.
Like Korea, like the BTS.
Well, now, currently, yeah, there's that big movement. But in the early 2010s, the biggest boy band was British. And over to you to talk about British boy bands.
Well, yes, we'll take you back to the late 80s and early 90s.
Take me back.
Take me way, way back. You're Van Morrison now, eh? He's another boy band. There you go.
Yeah. Him and Willie Nelson. And
yeah. All of them. Bob Dylan. All of them boy bands. Look at them. The ones I remember when I was growing up, I mean, I remember my sister was really into, and they were a duo, actually, so I don't know if you can classify them as a boy band. And they were famous for like 5 minutes. They were called Bros. And they were two brothers, like bros. Bros, I remember them. They were twins, as I remember, and they were young.
God.
I remember
how horrendous.
My sister had written in permanent marker on beside her bed, because I got her bed when she moved out. Bros. And I was like, why is this here? My dad was like, oh, my mother or someone was like, oh, there's some stupid boy band some stupid band that my sister was into, that Tanya was into, Yeah. And I found out later that they had one hit. They were like a one-hit wonder, really, but they were huge for a while. When will I be famous? That was their.
God.
That was their.
And the answer is never, because I've never heard of them in America.
Yeah, the answer was for 5 minutes, mate. That's about it. Then in the early 90s, E17 started coming out. There was this E17. They were kind of like a unique for a boy band because they inserted rap lyrics into their.
Oh yeah.
Into their thing. I mean, that was kind of like a unique kind of thing for a time. They weren't just sultry looks.
Oh, there we go. So would we consider the Beastie Boys a boy band?
They were Brian Harvey or something. Yeah, I mean, they had a huge hit in Christmas '93 with "Stay Another Day," which was the Christmas #1.
I love how you're looking at me for some sign of recognition. I don't know who these people are. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean. Then, of course...
Oh, yeah, that Christmas Day hit. I remember that well.
Then in 1994, Take That appeared, kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And they were huge. They were, huge. They were, Backstreet Boy plus NSYNC plus New Kids on the Block huge.
Yeah.
Because before that, it wasn't really like, you know, the boy band culture. It was grunge and the beginnings of Britpop was starting. But then take that kind of like, whoa, you know, this massive kind of thing. And this is what I'm talking about when they were covering songs by the Bee Gees, like How Deep Is Your Love, and they were making them hits. And but they had a couple of hits like I Want You Back for Good. That was their kind of song.
I don't know if
my sister's best mate Danielle, she was obsessed with them, and they split up in 1996, and she cried about it. She cried, I remember, because I was just like, she was like, oh, I had a little cry. Oh. She was obsessed with them. They're back together now, obviously. They've gotten in on this nostalgia kick as well.
They're the one with Robbie Williams, right?
Williams, yeah, that's kind of why they split, because Robbie Williams left to go on his solo career, and he became massive.
Well, Robbie Williams came over here.
He tried to come over here, but
he did. He had a couple songs. There, I remember this. Yeah, is that the one where he was taking his clothes off, and then he took his skin off and his muscles and everything, and he was just a skeleton?
That was Rock DJ.
Okay, yeah. So he had that one because I remember that music video.
He had a very solid solo career in the UK. You know.
I know who Take That is, but I don't know if I know who they are because they were popular over here, or if it's just because you've talked about them so much.
Take That were pretty popular, because I remember that in the Brit Awards in 1994 they did a Beatles medley.
Yeah.
You know, just for like, because they were as big as the Beatles, or so they thought, you know, because at the time, you know.
They compared like every boy band to that. Oh, these are crowds like you know, the Beatles. Yeah. They had a couple of songwriters in them. Oh God, the names are freaking. I want you back.
Want you back.
I think we had that song over here.
Want you back for good.
Yeah.
Whatever I said, whatever I did.
Yeah, I think we had that song over here.
Want you back for good.
Yeah.
That was like, I think that was one of their last ones before they split up the first time. I don't think they haven't really split. Jason Orange, that was another member of them, and there was Mark. Was there a Mark? I don't know. Yeah, no, it's like, you know, I remember they were on James Corden's Carpool Karaoke.
I should be having this conversation with a British girl, not you. Yeah, you don't know anything about
Danielle
boy bands.
Would know all about them. I mean, I don't know all about boy bands. It's not my thing, is it? But Take That were huge, and then, you know, like after they split up, the Britpop thing came out, and I was like, well, these are not boy bands, but Oasis and Blur and all that kind of like cleared the decks of them. Right. Then in 1998,
or are they boy bands?
Yep, they're boys. Then Boyzone and Westlife, and these are two Irish boy bands.
Nope.
Boyzone and Westlife came out, and I remember like the huge like hysteria again of them. Because Ronan Keating was the one in Boyzone, I remember, and he had a kind of solid solo career for a while too. Yeah. That was the one I was singing earlier. It was like, life is a roller coaster, just gotta ride it. And then he had a huge hit with If Tomorrow Never Comes.
Oh, right.
Covering Garth Brooks.
Okay, yeah.
And there was another one he had as well. You Say It Best When You Say Nothing at All. All country hits over here. Song. Yeah, I mean, they just reworked it into pop hits, you know, because he was, like, popular. Yeah. Westlife. I remember when I was in secondary school, I remember I knew this girl who was a year above me, and she was obsessed with Shane from Westlife. Shane from Westlife. I love Shane from Westlife. Oh. You know, I mean, they were doing their bit, you know. There was also Five, I remember them. There was also Blue as well.
I'm blue. If I were green, I would die. If I were green,
no. Blue were featured in Love Actually, funnily enough, as the rivals to Billy Mack. Remember them? They were they were a huge boy band at the time.
Okay, okay, yeah. The one he's drawing the mustaches on or whatever.
It wasn't mustaches. It was a rude word.
Oh.
Got kids watching, Billy. Oh God, just that, because Ant and Dec featured as well. They were in a boy band too, PJ and Duncan in the early 90s, but they didn't really do anything.
Oh yeah.
PJ and Duncan they were called, but yeah, they had
You mentioned James Corden, and it made me think he always tells the story that he was in a boy band as well.
Yeah, it didn't really go anywhere for James, but his dreams were shattered.
His career is going all right.
His boy band dreams were shattered. Then those were like 90s. The Wanted, I think. I don't know who they are.
The Wanted, I want to say we had them over here.
Maybe, yeah.
I have no idea.
Then we come into the early 2000s, which with Busted and McFly. No.
No.
They played instruments though, but they were like boy bands. They were that. They just played instruments like on freaking stage pretending,
Yeah.
But they were huge at that time, and McFly, they had a couple of hits, and then they split up, and then they got back together and formed a supergroup called McBusted.
Oh my God.
Now, and they're still touring now, so there you go.
God. Well, you see, I mean, that's what's going on. Like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and all of them.
Yeah, they're
98 Degrees, they're all
collaborating and everything. Yeah. I mean, and obviously then, the biggest one of the last 10 years has been One Direction.
Yeah.
That's been...
And they are probably...
And they've split up, and, they're having their solo careers, but...
Yeah.
It's like...
I don't know if any of them have done anything solo, really, though.
I think Harry Styles has.
I mean, stuff that's, like, come on the radio, or...
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, One Direction was probably the only British boy band out of your list that I know the name of.
One Direction, baby.
I know the name of Westlife, but again, I think it's just because you've mentioned it.
I've mentioned them, yeah. Westlife, I can't remember their
hits.
hits.
As well.
Boyzone, yeah. They were big in the early 2000s, late 90s.
But I don't think that they did anything over here. I could be wrong. If you're American and you know who Boyzone and Westlife are, or any of the other groups from Dominic's list, please let us know, because maybe I am just not aware, or maybe you know what the thing is I have always my whole life listened to the radio a lot. So it's just like a lot of the times on the radio they don't necessarily say who the artist is, they'll just play the song.
I mean, I know this is all about boy bands, but
so sometimes I just have heard the song and I don't realize who it was singing it,
Yeah. I know this is all about boy bands, but girl bands are pretty huge in Britain too. Yeah, girl bands.
Not so much over here, really.
Girl bands like
we prefer our
All
divas.
Saints. All Saints were one. Oh God.
The Spice Girls.
Well, yeah. I mean,
they're like the ultimate.
But they were famous over here too. They were huge over here too. The Spice Girls. That's what kicked off the resurgence in boy bands and stuff, I think.
Oh right, yeah. What was the name of the group with that Cheryl Cole? Isn't that her name?
Girls Aloud. There you go. Another girl band. Girls Aloud. Little Mix.
I mean, we have had some girl groups, but they don't generally last. I guess girls don't really care to listen to them. They rather listen to boy groups, boy bands.
Oh, I'm trying to think. Oh, there was All Saints. There was yeah. I mean, we've had a bunch, but I mean, those are like the bigger ones, Yeah. But yeah, the Spice Girls. But there was another one. There was another one around the same time as the Spice Girls who were like, they were the rivals, but then the Spice Girls just took off. Yeah. And just cleared
with a film like Spice World, I mean.
Spice World.
That was just
the best film ever made, really. Oscar-worthy.
Performances there.
It was Oscar-worthy performances from Roger Moore, who was in it.
Oh my God.
I think Elton John was in it too. I think everybody had a cameo in that film. And I remember when I was a kid, I was watching A Hard Day's Night, and this friend I had, she wanted to watch Spice World. No. I'm very sorry about that, but I'm very, it was a hard day's night for me, and it still is a hard day's night.
So, tweet us the name of your favorite boy band if you are into boy bands. Like, who did you grow up with? Who was who were you a diehard fan of? And as a second part to that question, if you are American, if you are somewhere around my age and was into the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC thing, were you a Backstreet Boys girl or were you an NSYNC girl? Actually, were you a Backstreet Boys boy or an NSYNC boy too? Maybe you were a fan of them. Who knows? My brother liked Backstreet Boys. I think he had one of their albums before I did, actually.
Yes. I think we've run that topic into the ground.
We really have, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know if you're a fan of, or if you despise them, that's okay too, because you know what? It doesn't hurt my feelings. I wasn't in a boy band, so you can hate boy bands all you want if you choose.
Big into them. They're obsessed with them. Okay, yeah.
Tweet us, Facebook us, Instagram us,
yeah.
All that kind of stuff. Share us, review us on iTunes or Spotify or whatever you can do that on. Do it.
Do it!
And we'll see you next time.
You want to play us out with a Backstreet Boys song or something?
Backstreet's back. All right.